Deputies.
Oh no, oh no. I've achieved very little for them considering how much time I've been involved with them, which I regret. No, but that's kind. That's really nice of you to say.
Deputies, please could you take your seats? Thank you.
Hello, Rachel. So ladies,
Thank you.
Yeah.
we're like the Swiss. Hello, Rachel.
Thank you. Good afternoon, deputies. I welcome you to this plenary meeting, one of the two that we have in the year, in the afternoon in June and July. Before we go into any formal business, I think it would be appropriate if we paused and stood for a few moments of silence to reflect on the memory of Joe Cox, Member of Parliament for Batley and Spen, who was murdered in a shocking act of senseless violence the other day. I ask deputies please to stand for a few moments. Thank you. Deputies, it's my great pleasure today to welcome here to the Board of Deputies my President, Ronald Lauder, the President of the World Jewish Congress. Under the rules of the World Jewish Congress, the President of the Board of Deputies, for the time being, is a Vice President of the WJC. So as Ronald's Vice President, I'm extremely glad to welcome Ronald here. Together with his wife, Mrs. Lauder, and members of his staff, including Maram Stern from the WJC office in Brussels, who's an old friend, and those accompanying President Ronald Lauder. Deputies, the World Jewish Congress, if I can remind you, was founded in 1936 in the shadow of the looming darkness that was falling across Europe, and not only for the Jewish people. Amongst its founding principles was to mobilize the Jewish people and democratic forces against the Nazi onslaught, to fight for equal political and economic rights everywhere, to create a worldwide Jewish representative body based on the concept of the unity of the Jewish people. Now that was in 1936, when the World Jewish Congress realized what they called the oncoming Nazi onslaught. Now we don't have time to deal with anything like the history, the remarkable history of the World Jewish Congress, but I think it's worth mentioning that in 1942, there was a telegram sent by its then Secretary General, Mr. Riegner, who learnt through sources behind the Nazi curtain that there were mass deaths that were picking up in concentration and death camps. And he sent a famous telegram to the US State Department and to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office warning of impending mass extermination of Europe's Jews. The US State Department termed this a rumour fueled by Jewish anxieties. The Foreign and Commonwealth Office likewise disbelieved it and refused initially even to forward the telegram onto anywhere else. Tragically, the world took not enough notice, and by the time it did wake up, it was too late for Europe's Jews. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the leader of the World Jewish Congress, who became a legendary leader, Nahum Goldman, in 1952 sat down in historic negotiations with Chancellor Adenauer of what was then West Germany, and he negotiated reparations for the victims of the Shoah. The reparations became organised by a body called the Conference for Jewish Material Claims against Germany, in short, the Claims Conference. And it was this board that was one of its founder members, and the reason why we're still members today of the Claims Conference, to oversee its allocations and ensure as much transparency as possible. And its sister, much smaller organisation, not well known at all, but whose meeting I'm attending next week, the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture, which administers a much smaller percentage of reparations monies, not for individuals, but for Jewish cultural projects. Now, with that legacy sitting on his shoulders, I have been very proud to have come to know Ronald Lauder in the last year since my election as president of the board. Under Ronald's leadership, the World Jewish Congress has again found its mission and is increasingly successful in stating it and in influencing world leaders. If Ronald Lauder wants to go to a capital to see a leader, he gets an audience, and he uses that power with discretion and clarity on behalf of our people. I have come to respect greatly the growing work of the World Jewish Congress under Ronald's leadership, and I'm delighted that his term of office is going to be extended for a further period. Just last week, Bar-Ilan University in Tel Aviv honoured Ronald Lauder with the prestigious Guardian of Zion Award for his efforts in perpetuation and strengthening of Jerusalem. And I commend to you the acceptance speech which Ronald gave on Tuesday. He said, amongst other things, the following: "Let's make one thing crystal clear right now. When someone says they are not anti-Jewish, they are only anti-Israel, that is a lie. When you hold the only Jewish nation to a different standard than any other country, when you make up lies about the only Jewish nation, its past and present, and when you want the only Jewish nation on earth to disappear, that makes you an anti-Semite, pure and simple." Ronald went on to say that for Jews today, our destiny is in our own hands. And then he said this, that the World Jewish Congress had come a long way since its founding in 1936, from the days when it had to turn to the world for help. But now, he said, the era of the quiet Jew is over. Well, Ronald, what I'd like to say to you is that on Tuesday afternoon, at the same moment as you were giving that speech in Tel Aviv, I found myself without knowing what you were saying, and I'm sure you didn't know what I was saying, exactly the same words to the Parliament in Westminster when I spoke at the Home Affairs Select Committee. And as anyone in this board knows, I also believe that the era of the quiet Jew is over. So I feel a great deal of affinity with President Ronald Lauder. I'm delighted he's here, honouring us with his presence, and I invite you, Ronald, to address the Board of Deputies.
Thank you. Thank you. First, this is a first time I've been to any Jewish event that started on time. Secondly, at the end of my speech, I will answer any question you want except about Donald Trump. And thirdly, Jonathan gave part of my speech today, and I appreciate it. But I'm honored to be here. It's been 7 years since I spoke with the Board of Deputies last, and I must tell you, it's a great honor for me to be here this afternoon with the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Perhaps the oldest ongoing Jewish representative body in the world. Those of us in the New World are impressed when we can date something back to the 1890s. So when the Board of Deputies goes all the way back to King George III, Americans have a hard time grasping that kind of longevity. I'm convinced that some of you may know people who are still there. I'd like to thank Jonathan Arkosh and Gillian Moron for your gracious invitation and your very able leadership through some of the most difficult events I can imagine. We in the U.S. have watched the growing anti-Semitism faced by all of you in Europe, and especially here in Great Britain, with great concern. Sadly today, we not only share those concerns, but we share the great sadness you have and all of Britain over the assassination of a Member of Parliament, Jo Cox, mother of two, who I understand had a brilliant future in front of her. The perpetrator seems to have ties to the far right. I also come from a country in mourning over the deaths of 49 and more than 50 critically injured innocent human beings in Orlando, Florida, by a radical Islamic terrorist. In Israel, the most recent attack took the lives of 4 victims who were simply having dinner at a popular restaurant in Tel Aviv. What do these tragic events have in common? Terror, intolerance, hate? 3 things that Jews have known all too well throughout time. Without question, there has been a resurgence of hate directed against Jews. We have not seen this since World War II. In Europe, these acts have been specifically against Jews in France and in Belgium, with devastating results. Make no mistake, there is a global threat that needs a global response. And as we confront this threat, we will be better able to do so when Jewish communities around the world, in the UK, the US, in Europe, and of course in Israel, stand united with each other. And that is perhaps the founding principle behind the World Jewish Congress. We will support every Jewish community in the world, no matter its size, no matter its wealth, no matter its influence, because of the upsurge in violence against us on this continent. Some have even suggested that all Jews should leave Europe for Israel. Let me make one thing clear. If all the Jews left Europe tomorrow, this would be very sad for the Jews, but it would be a disaster for Europe. 70 years and 3 generations later, after the end of World War II, anti-Semitism is back in the open again. Educated people, sophisticated people, people who should know better, say the same old, outrageous things about Jews in newspapers, on television, and on the internet. Things they would never say out loud about any other group. But unlike the anti-Semitism of the past, today, it does not come just from the far right, but increasingly, it comes from the left. The new target for this age-old hatred, however, is not the international Jew, as Henry Ford used to call us in the 1920s. It is the Jewish state of Israel, which is constantly vilified throughout the media, at the UN, and on almost every college campus. Call it BDS, or Students for Justice in Palestine, or major elements of the British political parties. I believe it's still the same old hatred of Jews. They still blame all the world's problems on us. Only now it's Israel, or the Mossad, that's behind everything from 9/11 to the Charlie Hebdo attacks. We are told that Jews cause all wars. But now, it's Israel. It's also Israel that is accused of the old blood libels, like killing children for body parts. Whatever in the world is wrong, Israel is at fault, according to today's anti-Semites. When someone says, and Jonathan quoted, well, they're not anti-Semitic, they're only anti-Israel, that's a lie. Because when you hold Israel to a different standard, when you lie about Israel, its past, its present, its people, and when you actually work to end Israel, the British community certainly knows this better than most others. There is a deep and well-founded concern over the statements by the leaders of the Labour Party. The anti-Zionism and the BDS movement on various campuses is more active here than in most countries. Earlier this year, the School of Oriental and African Studies at London University voted to boycott Israel, and this was sanctioned by the university. Would London University or any other school tolerate the same sanctions against blacks, Muslims, gay people? You know the answer to that. So if it's not okay to sanction these groups, why is it okay to sanction Israel? Why is it okay to sanction Jews? Because, make no mistake, these people are not just sanctioning a country, they are sanctioning a people, and that is not all right. The BBC, once the gold standard for journalism, seems to have a special vendetta against Israel, not unlike that of the UN. I particularly want to commend the board for challenging the deplorable anti-Semitism in pockets of mainstream politics. Jonathan, you gave an exceptional testimony at Parliament hearing last week and clearly articulated the community's just concerns. I join you, Jonathan, and the board in demanding action. On another front, I am heartened by the resolve of British Jewry. I spoke in Jerusalem in January about the evil of BDS movement. And I say again here today that this is a profoundly anti-Semitic movement with ties to the Muslim Brotherhood that seek the destruction of the Jewish people. The Better Way Than Boycott document that you have created offers positive alternatives to to BDS. The Fair Play Campaign Group brings together Jewish and pro-Israel groups brilliantly. Your meetings with senior executives of Sky News and BBC have, I believe, yielded results. You have pushed back against local councils flying Palestinian flags and passing BDS motions. Jonathan, Gillian, and all of you have not been silent in the wake of this onslaught. The World Jewish Congress and I are here to support you. We stand by you, and we are very proud of what you are doing to fight anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bigotry. And we will support you in all that you are doing on all these fronts. The problems we face as a people in 2016 are very real, but there is something absolutely vital that everyone in this room should remember. Today, our destiny is in our own hands. It wasn't always that way. In the 1930s, I just heard, the founders of the World Jewish Congress had to beg the rest of the world for help. In 1936, they gathered in Switzerland to bring the growing threat of Nazi Germany to the world's attention. I must tell you, that was the time of the founding of the World Jewish Congress, and their cry, as you heard, fell on deaf ears. 6 years later, in 1942, Gary Regner sent the famous telegram, and he was the first secretary of the World Jewish Congress. And he talked about the Holocaust in his telegram. And again, it fell on deaf ears. We did not have the power to get it done. Much of the world's attitude towards us may not have changed, but one thing has definitely changed. We have changed. We have no longer the era of the ghetto Jew or the timid Jew. We are no longer the quiet Jew. We will speak out. The World Jewish Congress does not have an army to defend the Jewish people. It is not a global economic power like Israel, but we have tremendous political clout, and we're not afraid to use it. When a right-wing neo-Nazi party became part of the parliament in Hungary, we went directly to the Prime Minister and we told him that it was not all right, and we suggested in the strongest possible terms that this could affect Hungary's economy, and it did. And we did the same thing in Greece. When I spoke at Auschwitz last year for the 70th anniversary of liberation, I said that it was not just world anti-Semitism that led to the Holocaust. It was world indifference. That is why I am fighting world indifference to anti-Semitism. Whenever I see it, we must all constantly fight that indifference. It doesn't stop there. The challenges we face in 2016 may be as old as time. But with technology and the internet, we must find new ways to fight these challenges. That is why our great priority of the World Jewish Congress is the next generation. The Jewish children around the world are our future, and we are committed to getting them involved, to making them proud of their inheritance. And what we intend to do, we have new forms of communication to involve them, not our old ways. We will use social media like it's never been used before, and we have already seen some of the positive effects. I want to share with you a few of our projects on this front. We have created the Jewish Diplomatic Corps, which some of them are here in England, young people between the ages of 25 and 45 who have been trained to lobby their governments for their Jewish communities. Today, there are 250 of them from many different countries, and I intend to have 1,000 Jewish diplomats from every country with a Jewish community. We're in the process of creating a website that will monitor all anti-Semitic, all anti-Israel activity on college campuses. And we will hire recent graduates from these colleges to go back to their universities and work with students. They know the terrain and they know the faces because they were just there, and they were helping the effort to take back the colleges from the haters of Israel and the Jewish people. I also wanted to create a Jewish Peace Corps with young Jews from Israel and the diaspora just out of college and not sure what they want to do. They will volunteer to work in Jewish communities throughout the world. And while they help others, they will also learn about their people and what it means to be part of their community. We're also going to create a Hasbara section. I'm tired of telling the Israeli government they should have a ministry of Hasbara. At the World Jewish Congress, there is no reason that our enemies should define our own narrative. Some of the smartest people in advertising are Jewish, and Jews practically invented public relations. We are going to get the best and the brightest among them, and many of them are here in England. And we, not our enemies, will define our story. That is just one of some of the things we at the World Jewish Congress are doing to confront these threats. You have to understand that I have no doubt whatsoever that we will ultimately prevail. I want to share with you my vision for the future, of the Jewish future of our people. And this is what I see ahead. I see the vibrant creativity of the Jewish people, admired by the world. I see the Jewish state of Israel, not vilified, but a country that everyone wants to copy. I see the end of boycotts, and perhaps most importantly of all, I see our young people proud to be Jewish once again. That's because there's a lot to be proud of. We belong to a people that have disproportionately advanced civilization. Jews gave the world monotheism. Jews save lives, all lives. Jews make the world better with their ingenuity, their music and literature. We make up less than 1% of the world's population, yet we have won 20% of all the Nobel Peace Prizes. We may be only 15 million people in a world of 2 billion Christians and 1.5 billion Muslims, but we have an incredible arsenal in talent and creativity. We also have thousands of years of tradition. Today, I've given you a list of challenges. I've told you about my vision. I will leave you with an important reminder. The Jewish people are not going to disappear. We have all come too far, for too long, to just disappear. This is not part of God's plan, but we can't completely leave it in his hands. He expects us to do the work. He has supplied us with the means. We will use the Jewish brilliance and Jewish creativity to solve our problems. There's an iconic photograph from the Holocaust. You've all seen it. And see it behind me? There's a frightened boy with his hands up. He's walking out of the ghetto. Nazi stormtroopers, you can see, with automatic weapons, stand nearby, smiling. We see this Jewish boy who represents 1.5 million other Jewish children who perished, 6 million Jews altogether, and our hearts break. But we cannot help him. We cannot save him. We can do nothing for this frightened boy. But imagine this. What if an angel came down at the moment this photo was taken and told the boy, listen to me. In less than 10 years, there will be a Jewish state in our homeland of our forefathers. There'll be a Jewish army and a Jewish Air Force and a Jewish Navy to defend Jews. Jewish soldiers will fall from the skies and rescue Jews in far-off lands. And this country will open its doors to every Jew on earth that needs help. Have faith, little boy. God is watching us. Do you think the boy could have possibly believed this angel? Would you have believed him at that time? Here is my point. We have to constantly remember what we have and what we have accomplished. We have to remember how far we have come. Today, we can fly into Tel Aviv on a Jewish airline with bold blue Star of David on the side for the whole world to see. It's flown by a Jewish pilot, and all we have to do complain about is the food. We must never, ever forget what we have earned, what we have fought for, and what we have accomplished. Finally today, I want to leave you with an old Hasidic tradition, that in every Jew, a flame burns. Sometime that flame is obscured, and the person can't see it, but it's always there. It's always burning. All you have to do is dust it off, and you will find it. 35 years ago, when I served as U.S. Ambassador to Austria, I saw a group of Jewish children from the Soviet Union in a nursery school in Vienna, learning about their heritage for the first time. I can't really explain it, but those children moved me in a way that I have never been moved before. Those children helped me find the Jewish flame inside my heart. They helped me rediscover my Jewishness. This is our job before us now, to help our children and our grandchildren dust off their hearts. We have to help them rediscover that Jewish flame inside them. This isn't just important for Jews, it's important for everyone, Jews and Gentiles, because for over 5,000 years, that flame has been lighting up the entire world. This is my directive to all of you. Do not let that flame go out. We've come too far, and the stakes are too high. We must never let that flame go out. God bless the Jewish community of Great Britain. God bless all of you in this room. And may God continue to bless the Jewish people. Thank you.
You happy to take questions from Electron?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be happy to take questions, Electron, as long as it's not about Donald Trump.
If you've got a question, can you show? Yes, Richard. Do you want go to the microphone there? Then Lionel, past President Lionel Kopolovitz, and Bruce, and I'll take after. We'll take three at a time. Okay.
Thank you. Richard Cohen, Loughton. President Lauder, thank you very much for that. As we can't ask you any questions about Donald Trump, I'll ask you one about Hillary Clinton. The woman of whom Donald Trump said she's got nothing going for her except for the fact that she's a woman. Can you tell us what Hillary's like when the mask is removed?
What? Say again?
Can you tell us what Hillary Clinton is like when she removes her mask? In other words, have you met her privately? And secondly, do you think there's any chance that if she's elected president, that she, perhaps with the advice of her husband, could bring about a peace treaty which so eluded Bill Clinton and then lead the world towards those broad sunlit uplands that Churchill spoke so passionately in 1945? Thank you.
Two things. I think my wife should answer your question, but secondly, I think I prefer a question about Donald Trump. Look, Hillary Clinton is an extraordinary experienced woman. She has a great deal of experience. It's controversial, yes. The fact that she's a woman plays obviously a role. But the fact is that I believe that, and this is my own feeling, that should she be elected, she will be an excellent president of the United States. It has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman or whatever she is. She is a very talented woman. I can't be more, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I can. Joe Cal, was it okay? Sort of okay. Okay, a little more, I should have said.
A question from past President Lionel Koplowitz.
Lionel Koplowitz, Senior Past President of the Board. Well, Mr. Lauder, that was a very, very powerful address you gave us this afternoon, and many of the words that you have spoken will resonate with us for a considerable period of time. Now, I've been a vice president of the World Jewish Congress myself during the time of Mr. Edgar Bronfman, and as you said, the president of the World Jewish Congress has an open door to almost every government in the world, but I was always very concerned at that time that he had some difficulty in dealing with Mr. Shamir when he was the Prime Minister of Israel. Now, the question that I really want to put to you is this. I know that you have easy access to governments. Have you got a ready and easy access to the present Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Netanyahu, and are you able to articulate some of the differing views within the Jewish world? Because after all, there are those who support the two-state solution and those who oppose it. But are you able to put these points to him, and are you able to influence him in any way, expressing the views of the World Jewish Congress?
I will say this. I've known Prime Minister Netanyahu for almost 40 years, and he is a very special person. As far as influencing him, I am the president of the World Jewish Congress. I am not God. But I will say something. I have spent the last 6 months going to almost every Middle Eastern country that I'm allowed to go to. And frankly, there's never been a better time for a two-state solution. Because of what's happened today with Iran, there is great fear in the Middle East, and the Middle East needs Israel very, very much. And I believe this is the time for a two-state solution. A one-state solution is not an alternative. And I do believe that this is the right moment. A one-state solution makes Israel into South Africa. You can't have a democracy with a one-state solution. I believe that there is chance to do great things. I think it's only a question of the ability to have this going on. Now, I do believe, and this is my own point of view, it has nothing to do with what I discussed with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I do believe by bringing Yvette Lieberman into the government, those of you who may agree or disagree, it was a chance to have a two-state solution, because if he had not brought him in and wanted to do a two-state solution, it's my belief that Naftali Bennett would have left and the government would have fallen. I think the bringing in of Lieberman, whatever you feel about him, is the fact that it gives Israel a chance to negotiate without having the fear of the government falling. I think I can't be more direct than that.
Thank you. Bruce?
Bruce Greenberg from Northampton Hebrew Congregation. President Lauder, thank you so much for your inspirational, beautiful address to us. I feel it's been an honor and a privilege to have you as a guest speaker for us today. Of course, a few years ago in the United States, we had our first Catholic president. Currently, we have our first black president. God willing, a year from now, we'll have our first female president. Do you think there will ever be a day that we will have a Jewish president in the United States?
Inshallah.
Lawrence Saffer, President Leeds Jewish Representative Council. The question I want to ask is a practical one. You mentioned that you would like to have 1,000 Jewish diplomats, people aged between 25 and 45. I have one in mind. How do I get her to you?
How what?
How do I get her to you to be one of the 1,000 Jewish diplomats?
I'm sorry, how do we get to me? There's a young gentleman here who has been around more than many of you have, named Ram Stern, who you speak to. And I'd be delighted to have anyone come. Now comes the toughest question of all. We remember each other well. When I was the chairman of going there, I'd always be afraid of his questions. It was always, when did you stop beating your wife?
You may say the same again today. Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. Sir, it's a great pleasure to see you back with us again. And I do congratulate you on your sterling efforts on behalf of the Jewish people around the world. You may recollect your first Congress as president. I challenged you and your colleagues on the platform over the failings of the Claims Conference. I was wildly cheered by virtually all the delegates, except for one or two who were die-hard supporters of the Claims Conference. Could you please tell us, are you now satisfied with the changes that have been, and could you give us an indication of whether, and this is very key, you believe the money given to the Claims Conference should be spent on those who are survivors or on educational and other activities which takes money away from the survivors? The second thing, very quickly, sir, twice at congresses, I've stood up and successfully, unfortunately for you, challenged the way the lack of accountability and transparency survives in the WJC. Could you give us an update of what's been done since the last Congress to improve accountability and transparency? Thank you, sir.
This was, when did you stop beating your wife? Okay, let me ask you your first one first. The Claims Conference. It's a mess. However, it's extraordinarily difficult when you're dealing with tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of people in 30 different countries, all of whom have different claims. I think the Claims Conference is doing as well as they can. I'm not happy with it. I agree with you on a lot of the things you said. I am one voice there. There were a lot of voices. The last meeting I attended, there were 70, 80 people at the table, all pulling and pushing in different directions. I don't know the answer, but I will tell you one part of the answer I do feel. I do feel we have to put more money out sooner than we're doing it, and I do believe that many of the survivors are in their last years of their lives and have no money, and we have to do much more for that. And there is a question that we have a meeting coming up, frankly, and I'm proposing it. As far as transparency of the World Jewish Congress, I don't know how much more transparent we can be, because we publish everything we do, and whatever we don't publish, someone else publishes. So I presume that we're as transparent as we can be. Now, if there's areas that we're not telling people about, I'd like to know about it, because I don't know about it. But we are as transparent as we can be. It's not easy. And I think Jonathan will tell you and people here, it's not easy being the head of a Jewish organization. It's an impossible job, and I believe that in the Jewish world, no good deed goes unpunished. Thank you. One more question?
Marie,
Two.
there'll be three more
two more.
questions. Then we'll
Okay.
close.
Marie van der Zyl, a Vice President of the Board.
In charge of
Thank you.
campuses.
I'm going to ask you a very straightforward question, maybe not so straightforward. Can I ask you from a Jewish perspective what your views are as to whether or not the UK should leave Europe, if you have a Brexit view? Because I'd be very interested from a world perspective what your reasons would be.
Do I have to answer that?
Yes. Or it doesn't have to be, or a wider perspective, whatever views you could share.
What do you feel?
What do I feel? I think it's a very difficult decision. I would
Look.
say on balance I would probably remain, but part of me is tempted to leave.
It pains me. This is my own point. I'm not voting. It pains me to have to agree with President Obama, but I do believe that they should stay in because I think that to leave the European Union would be devastating for the European Union because England is one of the key holders there, and I believe it's very important to show unity for Europe. I can't be more direct than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Anthony Spencer and Flo Kaufman, and that's all we have time for.
President Lord, it's a pleasure to see you and to listen to your speech earlier on. Marie actually pinched part of my question because I'm asking a question about the EEC as well. And the question I ask is this, that I follow quite a lot of what goes on in the European Parliament, and there is a great deal of anti-Israel, anti-Semitic activity, anti-Shechita, anti-circumcision, and the worst of all is that we have a number of Euro MPs who are exactly the same, that will not support Israel and vilify them. Now I wondered, what is the World Jewish Congress doing to actually combat this type of behavior?
Well,
thank you.
I'll give you let me start. First of all, I had the great privilege of speaking in Cologne a few years ago of why circumcision was important. And it was a very unusual situation, but let me give you the feeling. The United Nations today is a cauldron of anti-Israel rhetoric. The various things that go on, of the last 23 resolutions in the UN, 20 were against Israel. Although there were 500,000 people killed in Syria, in Iraq, in the Middle East, 20 were against Israel, only 3 for the rest of the world. Gives you an idea. The European Council, European Union Council, is nothing more than a reflection of the same type of thing. If England is there or not there, it's still going to be the same rhetoric. The real question is we are looking to see what we can do. The answer is a very simple one. Not about Europe, but about the UN. We, the World Jewish Congress, and I just read an article that Israel and the Prime Minister is doing that also, have to go to all these countries. For example, there are 54 countries in Africa. 14 of them are Muslim or difficult situations. 40 of them would vote with Israel. question is, we've never really sat down and talked to them about Israel. That goes also with Central Asia. That goes also with parts of Latin America. If Israel is going to be able, and the World Jewish Congress working with it, or can be able to have a voice in the UN or the European Council, particularly the UN, we have to start getting out the fact that there is no foreign minister of Israel, although the prime minister is, the fact that the ministry itself is not getting out there enough. We, the World Jewish Congress, can only do so much. I have visited 40 countries, and when I speak to them about Israel and what they should do, they say to me, many of them, you're the first person saying this to us. We have to go out and start speaking. You yourself know what effect you're having here in the UK. Although it's difficult, your voices are heard. Jonathan's testimony, your meeting with Sky News and BBC, all the different things you're doing, you're having an effect. But there are not Jewish communities like this throughout the world. Many countries, for example, in many countries in Africa, there's no Jewish communities, or very little. We must get out there and give them a reason why they should be with Israel. I must tell you, I visited several Middle Eastern countries that said to me, we would like to be with Israel, we need Israel. One of them said to me, you know, we only have 9 years left of oil, what should we do? I said, why don't you try high tech? He said, we would love to make a deal with Israel and start working with them. I said, why don't you? He says, give us a chance. The real aspect is, it's a world out there. The word is economy. And the fact is that we must do what we can. This whole question about circumcision or all the kashrut or things like that, it's done by a small group of people. I found out something else about BDS. You know how many people are involved on the Muslim side or Palestinian side on BDS? 150. 150 people are involved. We know the names of all of them. Many of them have bad backgrounds, but they are being able to be effective because it's easier to say something of hate than it is something of good. And what they say, we had this person who went, who was a Jewish person, who went from group to group. There's a video of him speaking about Hamas. And he got people to contribute to Hamas. Because somehow or another, students think, hey, I'm going to be part of I'm going to stand up for the rights of people, when they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The question is, that's why we're talking about Hasbara. That's why we're talking about using the social media. If you look at social media, 90% of social media is anti-Israel. Really, very, very little. You've done more than most people have in social media, and yet you haven't done enough. That's one of the things we're doing. We're hiring great people for the social media and doing it. But you can't do everything at one time. But your answer really is to you, the European Union should be more friendly to Israel. They're not. And we have to do everything we can. But there's one word that comes out. You know what that is? The economy. I'll tell you a story. Any reporters here? This is off the record?
No, it's live streamed.
Okay, I can't tell you a story then. Okay, a country that's non-named started to vote to ban Israeli products. I called up the country and said, well, you want to ban Israeli products, we, the US, will ban your products. What do you think? He says, we like Israeli products. We don't use our power correctly. We don't use our intelligence enough. We are too often looked on as the victim. let's change the thing around. I see the change will come on. And let's stand up for Israel, let's stand up and let's talk about what goes on. And let's call people an anti-Semite when they're anti-Semite. When I first met Hugo Chavez, he was the ex-president or dictator of Venezuela. He said, I wanted to start the conversation off on the right foot. So I came in and said, President Chavez, I understand you're an anti-Semite. I wanted to get the thing going nicely. The translator almost died saying it. May she rest in peace. And Hugo Chavez, may he rest in pieces. The fact is, Hugo Chavez says, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm anti-Israel. And I said, who the hell do you think are in Israel? Martians? He stopped and says, you know something, you're right. He backed off. Nobody wants to be called an anti-Semite. And if you tell them by being anti-Israel, you're being anti-Semite, they sort of get nervous. And that's where we're coming from. I must tell you, the great thing about the World Jewish Congress is that we do have that power, and it's also important that you're American because they fear the American economy. And I will tell you, the U.S. Congress, and it makes a difference who's president, the U.S. Congress is extraordinarily pro-Israel. And if there any country really and truly gets there, I believe that the U.S. Congress will back some kind of economic against them. And we haven't used it yet, but it's that possibility that makes people react. But I will say, it's organizations like the Board of Deputies. There are very few organizations like yours where you all come together and talk. And I'm proud to speak to you. I'm proud of what you do. And I think that your children and grandchildren may never appreciate what you do, but you'll know what you did. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we're just going to thank you. 2 seconds.
Mr. Lauder, thank you very much for your powerful words and for taking the time to answer questions. I know it will very much resonate with everybody in the room. In fact, our International Relations Officer, David Walsh, has just joined the WJC's Jewish Diplomatic Corps, and we wish the programme every success. You should also know that you are following hot on the heels of another ambassador, that of the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom, who addressed us just at our last meeting. So thank you very much for being with us, and we're delighted to have another speaker of such high calibre. And thank you for all that you do for the Jewish community around the world. And you know, after your distinguished career, Mr. Ambassador, you could have chosen a nice, easy life, a few holidays and some decent meals, but you haven't. You've given considerably of your personal time and effort on behalf of the whole Jewish people, and we thank you for that. We're proud of the role that the British Jewish community plays in the WJC, and with our new team, we look forward to continuing that relationship. Thank you also, Mrs. Lauder, for being with us today. We've put on the best of the British weather that we could possibly give you. It's nearly always like this in London, so please do come back and see us again, and safe trip back to the United States. Thank you.
Deputies, the minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated and we haven't received any proposals for amendments, so can I take those as read and passed? Thank you very much indeed. And that brings me on to the President's statement. I just want to add to the Muzzletoff announcements, and we've got a few very significant ones, to Flo and Aubrey Kaufman, former Vice President, Treasurer, on their 45th wedding anniversary. Flo, we're delighted you're here. Muzzletoff. We also offer those condolences that are marked there. The only thing I'll mention before we open the statement is that today a number of deputies, after I made a rather rash appeal, have participated in the Maccabi Community Fun Run, which showed off the best of our community. I know that Gary Mond and Senior Vice President Richard Verber participated in the 5K run, and Dr. Gillian Gertner and myself participated and finished the 10K run. So Richard might be half my age, but I did twice the distance. Jerry, I didn't see you there. Probably the most significant events of the week were the two inquiries related to anti-Semitism. Starting with the second first, the board facilitated a communal round table to meet Shami Chakrabarti together with her vice chairs, Professor David Feldman and Baroness Jan Royal. And I was really very proud of the community and the way that we set out our case with moderation and care from many different voices around the table. I know that we're not the only people talking to her, but we were, I think, amongst the most significant in the community. We now have to place such confidence as we can in the Chakrabarti inquiry and to hope that she gets the points and recommends accordingly. I then had the experience, which I admit was somewhat daunting, on the same day of giving evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee and receiving quite a number of questions from some senior members of Parliament. The only satisfaction I had, well, quite a lot of satisfaction actually, but one satisfaction was that Ken Livingstone, who was sitting behind me scowling, when his term came, he got an extremely and uniformly unfriendly reception, and I think we would say deservedly so. The reception I got was rather better, and you can see some of it online. So if anyone wants to ask me any questions about the Home Affairs Select Committee or the Chakrabarti inquiry, now's your moment. Yes, is that Amos, isn't it, from Yachad?
Amos Schonfield from Yachad. I just want to make sure that it's minuted that the board thanks the Jewish Labour Movement, Jeremy Newmark and everyone else on his NEC for the fantastic work that they've been doing on the Chakrabarti inquiry. I was very thankful to be in a meeting that they led with a lot of other young people, students and activists that made sure that their voice was heard alongside the voices of you and other members of the community, but I really think it's important that we note that they're in a very tough situation right now and doing a fantastic job of mediating, being both the heart of the labour movement and the heart of the Jewish community.
Yes, I've publicly commended the Jewish Labour Movement. It's very important to have them, and if anyone knows or is a member of the Labour Party, I hope you'll join the Jewish Labour Movement and work from the inside. Did I see a couple of questions from over there? Yes, Marvin and Jonathan, if you'd like to come forward to the front, please. Sid, and then I think that'd probably be all the questions on that topic, or I'll allow one more. Yes, and sorry? Darren, yeah, that'll be it on that subject. If you want to come to the microphone and await your turn, if you would. Malvin Benjamin first.
Malvin Benjamin, Hendon United Synagogue. I believe, Mr. President, that this is the first occasion on which a President of the Board of Deputies has ever addressed a select committee of the House of Commons. And I think it speaks volumes for the work that you have done, particularly over the last 6-9 months. You know, the board was castigated rightly for leading from the back on operation which took place a number of years ago. You have led from the front all the way along the line, and we really appreciate it. I believe that you are the person who has taken the lead in the community. The right time, the right place, the right person. And we are all indebted to you for your leadership. The tactics that you have shown would be an example to the manager of the England football team. And in the circumstances, while we are always ready to criticize, by the same token, we should give praise where praise is due, and it is more than due for the efforts which you and the board have made. The board, over the last few months, has played a blinder. Thank you, Mr. President.
Jonathan Goldblum, Marseille Das. I unfortunately didn't see the President's presentation. I'm sure it was excellent, but I did see the questioning of Mr. Livingstone, and I and some other distinguished member, another person who is a distinguished member of the community, said to me that he won the debate in the sense, Livingstone, because there was no specific answer to Ken Livingstone's allegation about Hitler supporting Zionism. And we know that his views and his prejudices, but I think in future the community ought to make some effort to provide the relevant people with these precise details in how to deal with such an allegation, because the allegation itself is not given a specific answer. It unfortunately strengthens our enemies. And I think this is a serious matter that ought to be given consideration in future.
Jonathan, I can tell you that in my words, I gave the answer, and furthermore, the board has followed up with the Home Affairs Select Committee by giving them some specific articles by distinguished and genuine Holocaust historians of repute, citing chapter and verse as to why Livingstone's odious charge was completely without any foundation.
Thank you.
Sid Brown.
Sid Brown from Barnet Synagogue. Mr. President, under the heading of Parliament and anti-Israel, I ask this question, please. Last Friday's Daily Telegraph published a letter under the heading of UK aid to the Palestinian Authority, and it was from the Conservative Middle East Council, from their chairman and president. Just to read a couple of sentences, the biggest driver of violence, they say, is the occupation by Israel of the Palestinian territories. If there were no occupation and the Palestinians could run their own affairs, then the need for UK aid would soon dry up. And so it went on. Old canards are obviously still alive. Will the board engage with the Conservative Middle East Council to rebalance and correct their misunderstanding, especially after Mr. Lauder's comments earlier this afternoon, and please not to duck this one. Thank you.
I'll ask Richard to answer that.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Sid. It's worth noting the context of that letter. I wasn't able to watch it because it was on second day Shavuot, but on Monday there was a debate in Westminster about British aid in general. You remember that this government, and indeed previous governments, have committed to spend 0.7% of British GDP on international aid, supporting causes all around the world. Part of that, we know, goes to the Palestinian territories, and one of the challenges that the Jewish community faces is the Palestinian Authority seemingly rewarding terrorists with payments for their acts. It's something that you can see the record in Parliament. A number of MPs from both sides of the House, notably led with the support of the chair of the Conservative Friends of Israel and also the Labour Friends of Israel, to readdress some of the balances, some of the lies put forward, and you give a good example of one. It's also something that we're working on privately with our friends that we're speaking to in the various parties, and also something that will be addressed with the Foreign Office directly. We had a meeting there last week to talk about a number of issues. We were due to be met with representatives from DFID, the Department for International Development, to talk about this precise issue that you've raised, so thank you for doing that. They were unable to join us at our last meeting. We're trying to get a new date in the diary, and I look forward to updating you and the wider board once that meeting's taken place, because you're absolutely right.
I'm glad you're on the case. Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Darren Vanning, Barnet United Synagogue. I'm just wondering how the board would react to were Ken Livingstone to be allowed back in the Labour Party, and is this essentially the litmus test as to whether Labour is finally getting to grips with the problem of anti-Semitism there? Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. I've made it very clear that the board would react very negatively if Ken Livingstone were readmitted to the Labour Party. Of course, very senior Labour figures have said things which are rather stronger than that. It would certainly be one of a number of possible litmus tests. I think it would be a very bad sign indeed, and I certainly hope that won't happen. The Selects Committee branded his evidence as unconvincing, which I thought was an interesting comment, which they gave him straight away. Thank you very much. I wanted at this point to do something I just mentioned wanted to do earlier, which was to welcome all new deputies to the board. I'm delighted to congratulate Lawrence Saffer on his election as the president of the Leeds Jewish Representative Council. Lawrence, very nice to see you here. Thank you for coming. Also delighted to welcome to the board Max Gold from Hull, who is standing in for their deputy today. Max has been one of the most significant movers and shakers of the Jewish community in Hull for many years. And Max, I know that next week Hull celebrates its 250th anniversary, I think, of the inception of the Jewish community, one of our most senior Jewish communities. And I would like you please to convey to the community the board's congratulations, and I hope to be present at a commemorative event later in the year or in the new year when the date is known. For any other new deputies who are here, please accept my welcome. Two from Colchester. Thank you. Deputies from Colchester who are waving. Thank you. A very warm welcome to you. Right. Participation in the AJC Global Forum. Yes. It's Jeff.
Jeff Ryan, Birmingham Progressive Synagogue. In your paragraph about the AGC Forum, you mentioned that Mayor Sadiq Khan signed the AJC's Mayors United Against Anti-Semitism Declaration. You also say on the next page that 5 other UK mayors also signed or after being approached by the board. Can you let us know who these mayors are, what cities or towns they represent? And can you also say what we can do as deputies to get every mayor in the UK to sign this declaration so there's a united UK response to this?
Thank you, Jeff. I know from top of my head St Albans and Bristol. There must be another couple who I just can't recall, but we'll let you know. I think Marie heard your question, and I think it would be an excellent initiative if we could begin a campaign to sign up as many mayors as possible from the United Kingdom. And I think that would be an excellent task for the Defence and Group Relations Division to take on. Thank you. Orlando Massacre? Yes. You just want to come forward, David?
Thank you. I welcome the President's statement condemning the bigotry that has been engendered, particularly by the campaign of Donald Trump. I have to say I was disappointed by what I thought were hyper-partisan comments made by Rabbi Laura Jana Klausner in focusing upon American liberal Jews in relation to the bigotry of Donald Trump. In particular, the largest victims, particularly of Trump's online Twitter troll army, have been Jewish conservatives, a number of which are quite well known in the media. There's been Bill Kristol, Jonah Goldberg, amongst others, and they have been particular victims because of their principled stand as conservatives against everything that Donald Trump stands for. And in particular, I think this puts it as best as possible in terms of where Jews should stand on a non-partisan basis. America is not bound by a shared nationality, religion, or even geography, but a commitment to certain ideals, that all people are created equal, endowed by God with inalienable rights, and that government is instituted to secure these blessings. This is the Republican creed that has animated the American experiment in self-government for 240 years. These are principles which I think Jews should think very positively about. So I would have thought that it's sensible not to make a partisan issue of it and condemn the victims of anti-Semitism regardless of their political affiliations.
Thank you very much, Dave, for that. I've been asked a number of questions which have been answered in writing, and I don't think there's anything that calls for further comment, but I'll give people an opportunity in just a moment. What I would like to do is pass on immediately to the Executive Committee report, because as always there may be some overlap. I will give you the opportunity. So, key current events considered by the Executive Committee: anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, I think we've dealt with that. The meeting today. I've mentioned I mention this now because we've been asked a couple of questions about it. In order to meet the needs of those who have a hearing impairment and who may be assisted by lip reading in the most cost-effective way, the Executive Committee has concluded that the seating arrangements should remain theatre style for future meetings for the foreseeable future, and we're continuing to evaluate it. We get comments on both sides. Some would like us to go back to so-called parliamentary style, and some would like us to go to remain at theatre style. The comments, broadly speaking, are at a roughly equal. I know that I can't please all of the people all of the time, but we're doing our best to make sure that everyone has proper access to our meetings, can follow it, and also that everyone, I think broadly speaking, the arrangements are working reasonably well. I will take some questions. So all right, yeah, I'm going to take your question in a minute. I'm going to treat it as a question. Bernard Silver, Robert, I'm going to let you ask a question. So make your point of order then. I think I'd like to repeat something I said at the last meeting. Now, Robert, may we wish you long life on the passing of your mother at the age, I think, of 103.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, it is simply a point of order, which is to point out that in saying that you'd had comments from several deputies on this seating, you failed to mention that there was a vote at this meeting which was overwhelmingly in favour of parliamentary seating. You neglected to mention that.
Mr. President, that wasn't really a point of order because I was going to say the same thing in a speech, so perhaps I could just continue from that. Bernard Silver, Western Marble Arch Synagogue. There wasn't a resolution put to the board, but there was a straw poll taken, and it was not, as the President implied a few moments ago, roughly 50-50. It was an overwhelming majority in favour of not what I call parliamentary seating, but what I call the seating we have in our shul and most shuls. It is the way Jews like to sit when they pray, and it's also the way that we can see who's here and we can recognise people. And we don't altogether like the idea of them and us. It's a nonsense to say that this is for lip reading. Lip readers can quite easily sit themselves in view of the microphone, and they can lip read perfectly comfortably if they only take seats down here, and if it's necessary we can reserve some seats for them. That's a nonsense. The fact is that overwhelmingly we said that we prefer the seating that we've had traditionally at the board, and I think you should bring it before the board again as a resolution and have a proper debate on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
no, Joe, I'm going to answer. No, yeah, thank you very much, Gerald. There's nothing to refer back, so it's not a recommendation, and Jerry, could I ask you to resume your seat and not raise your voice, please? I'm going to respond to the point. When I took an indicative vote several months ago, it was, as I said at the time, it was an indicative vote. And afterwards, and repeatedly afterwards, over several meetings, I've asked for views to come in from people who wanted to reflect in a more mature way. The truth is that when you're dealing with disabilities, it's simply not appropriate to say we want to vote on how people want to sit, if in fact that impacts on people with genuine disabilities. We're a board of deputies that has to be accessible to all members of the community, and we have to give particular consideration to those who find it hardest to hear what is going on. And therefore, if you like, they have an extra consideration or even an extra vote, which I want to listen to. If I thought there was any particular disadvantage in having the seats and style we have now, I'd think about that very seriously, but I can't think of one. And as I said to just a moment ago, when we've weighed up the views coming in, they're about 50-50. Now, as I said, for the time being, I'm going to consider how the meetings are going, and the executive committee will itself refer this back to it in a few months' time, and we'll listen to the discussion in the meantime. It's not set in stone. I hope that is the best indication I can give. The regional deputies meeting took place this morning, and I understand was a very positive meeting. Thank you very much to Paul Edlin and all those who took part. The by-election and going forward, I would like to congratulate Bernard Silver on being elected, and if anyone wants to raise any matters concerning that, this is your opportunity to do it. The Executive Committee considered it in detail. We made a mistake, and mistakes happen. The Constitution Committee is making recommendations and carrying out an investigation as to doing the most effective way of counting and avoiding the unfortunate error that crept in last time. And I am sorry about the error. It was human error, and these things happen, but I hope that having investigated it, we won't let it happen again. Yes, Roger. Right. No, right, yes. Could you give your name and constituency, please?
Richard Del Monte, David Ishaq Synagogue. I welcome the recommendations that were made in relation to the by-election. There were serious mistakes made on the original count. A whole block of votes which should have been transferred to a candidate were not transferred, and a number of other miscounts on the first and fourth stages of the count were also mistaken. I understand that there are not detailed instructions given to the returning officer and the scrutineers, if any. If that is the case, I think they should receive very clear instructions, and preferably in advance, because the transferable vote system is quite complex. My second concern is that candidates or their representatives should be entitled to attend the count and should also receive the instructions for the count. And I hope that the committee will be able to consider those points when they next decide what the processes should be. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Richard. I mean, indeed, all those points have been taken on board. Tony Leifer couldn't be here today. Rachel Savage is deputising for him. This is obviously an important issue for the Constitution Committee. On one point, I believe that there are, in fact, clear instructions given to the scrutineers. The returning officer is one of the senior and experienced board member who's carried out many previous votes and indeed a former chairman of the Constitution Committee. So, but we take up all those points, understood. Dates for meetings for 2017. I will take some questions. They're in front of you on a sheet. And Jonathan Davis, yes?
Jonathan Davis, Golders Green United Synagogue. The proposed meeting in September 2017 is on the Sunday before Rosh Hashanah, which is the Sunday of when many communities observe the midnight Selichot service. I think having a meeting, in some years, because that is unavoidable, but it does seem that this year, it does seem with the possibility, I do question whether this in 2017, it might be possible to move that to the 10th of September and avoid what would be a very unfortunate date.
Yeah. We did think of that. There's trouble when you move a meeting, as there's always a knock-on effect on other meetings. If you move it to the 10th of September, you've then got a particularly long gap before the 19th of November in a season when things tend to happen straight after the Chagim. I thought quite carefully, especially as someone who habitually goes to the late night Selichot, which end at about 1:30 in the morning, so you get home a little after 2 in the morning. Well, I know how many deputies go clubbing every Saturday night and get home at that, and they still come and they're looking bright and fresh. I do accept, Jonathan, it affects a few people, but we considered it was the least of the evils, and not that many people would be affected, and they would be able to get here. We don't start till 11:15, so for most people, it will get you enough sleep, hopefully. So there we are. Jerry Lewis.
I completely agree with you. Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. Sir, can I just have your advice for a moment before moving the reference back? I also wish to raise something under matters as a whole on the executive report. Can I do them both together, or do you want me to do them separately?
Well, do them together. Let's hear what they are, Jerry.
If you just allow me an extra moment of time, it won't be long. First of all, I move the reference back of these dates. Those of us who have a memory of the old board will know we used to have a December meeting. And the advantage of a December meeting was not that some people would go on holiday on that particular Sunday, but the gaps between meetings are considerably reduced. It gives an extra meeting. We used to have that extra meeting, and the advantage was a very simple one. More deputies could have an opportunity to speak. More deputies could have an opportunity to hold the top table accountable and transparent and open. We don't have that. If you look at the gaps, this year between July and January, there are a total of just 3 meetings, and in those gaps, 9-week gaps. In the first part of next year, the average gap is 5 or 4 weeks, except for the Pesach break. The second half of next year, the same problem, 9-week gaps. There are things happening all the time. There's absolutely no reason why we can't have this extra meeting we used to have in December. Therefore, I move the reference back on that particular issue. My second point, sir, is very brief. Some of us have had an invitation to attend a counter-demonstration for the Al-Haq Day, the day when people are going to be marching by the Islamic group movement through central London. Some people feel, and Ronnie Lauder said this, and Johnny, you said it very clearly, that it's better for the Jews to be prominent, to be seen on the streets, or proudly showing their Jews. I say, sir, there should be a dividing line between when there is an advantage for us to show our faces and to demonstrate our love of Israel, our support of Israel, and going on the streets, which causes the opposition, who get no publicity at all, to get the oxygen of publicity. And I believe the Sussex Friends of Israel are terribly misguided to promote a demonstration on the streets of London on the same day as another group who are fighting against Israel, because all you've done, after years and years of them demonstrating and getting no publicity, you're giving them the very oxygen of publicity they should not be getting. And I think we as a board should draw the line between those demonstrations where we support Israel, fight for Soviet Jewry, Iraqi Jewry, or whatever, and those which are giving the oxygen of publicity to those we don't want to give. Finally, I congratulate you on your excellent, but excellent presentation at the Select Committee. It was, unfortunately, Melvin got it wrong. There have been previous presidents and vice presidents who've given evidence to the Select Committees, but it was a masterclass, and I have to say so. Thank you.
On Al Quds Day, there are groupings that wish to demonstrate. The board would be the last people to say that people shouldn't demonstrate in support of Israel. When we did, we've been accused of that before, and it wasn't a very happy experience, even when the accusation wasn't true. But Jerry makes a point that sometimes Al Quds Day is better just left. The Al Quds Day is sponsored by Iranian-supported people, and it supports Hezbollah. And I think we should treat it, frankly, with the contempt which it deserves. On the dates, look, deputies, the pattern this year, and Jerry, you're nothing if not predictable, if I may say so, because I think you gave the same speech last year, and I think it was the same speech the year before, and I haven't got a memory long enough to remember all the years before that. Look, we've had this pattern now, and it's proven to be pretty successful. We have 8 meetings in a year, and the movable ones tend to be, depending when Pesach falls, whether it's in March or April, and there's always a gap in August for obvious reasons, and then of course it's whether the Chagim fall in September or they fall in October. This year they fall, 2017 they'll fall in October, which really pushes the meeting into September, which inevitably means there's a gap in November. There is a gap between late November and January, but that period is often quite affected by the shutdown over Christmas, New Year. You did succeed in persuading the board to vote for a December meeting a couple of years ago, and the result was it cost the board an extra £3,000. The meeting was held in the run-up to Christmas and was not as well attended as usual. Most people felt it was really one meeting too many, and therefore I'm in the hands of deputies, but I do feel that we've got to finally, a pretty successful compromise. It is compromise, there's always some give and take, and so I would oppose that this be considered yet again, because I don't think the Executive Committee would reach a different view. But I will take an indicative vote and ask this. For those who would like to support the schedule of meetings as set out on the sheet you have been supplied with, so you support that there'll be those meetings, including 8 in 2017. Will you please show? Thank you. For those who would vote against, would you please show? Okay, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think, Jerry, you've got the feeling of the meeting, and we've had a specific substantive vote on it, so it's better than a reference back, and you've got your answer. Right. I'd like to thank Jackie Naftalin for marvellous service as co-chair of the Women's Group for 5 years, and wish the Women's Group well under its... I'm not sure who's going to succeed Jackie. Hasn't been decided yet. I can't remember if I have congratulated Dr. Sheila Giewol, Board Vice President. Sheila, that now that you are a Doctor of Philosophy, I hope you will just treat the rest of us lesser President and Vice Presidents, who will just have to be treated as family thickos in deciding things, and we will bow to your superior intellect. And many congratulations. Are there any other questions relating to the President's report or the Executive Committee? I'm not going to encourage too many because time presses. Linda Sharp, I can see, and I think that would be all. Oh, wait a minute. Is it? Yes. Sorry, I can't. Yes. Is that Mervyn? Do I see? Mervyn Smith. Do come forward, Mervyn, please. Did I miss anyone? Right. That's it then. Right. Linda.
Linda Sharp, Finchley United Synagogue, Kinloss Gardens. It's not really a question, but as an ardent royal watcher, I was very proud to see you sitting Ubenun in St Paul's Cathedral last week at the Queen's celebration Thanksgiving. I think it says a lot for the Jewish community that you and Rabbi Mervis and other representatives were there.
This is to do with the questions put to the President.
Name and constituency.
Sorry, Mervyn Smith, Sutton. I did, in fact, scan 2 questions, one of which has been published and the other hasn't, and they were relating to the speech made by Lian Mohammed at Wanstead High School. You responded to the first question, which related to the situation of Wes Streeting, who had stated that he did not consider the speech was anti-Semitic. My concern was that in his position as vice chair of the all-party group against anti-Semitism, if the exaggerated statements and false statements in her speech were not deemed to be anti-Semitic by Wes Streeting, is he, and perhaps we should suggest to him that he might not be appropriate in the fulfilling his position, albeit that it's recognized that he is a great supporter of the Jewish community and Israel. The second question that was being put to the President, which wasn't in the papers, and I'll read it if I may. Will the President make representation to the head of Wanstead High regarding the indoctrination that must have surrounded the false statements made by Lian Mohammed in her speech? This is likely to cause further anti-Semitism as a result of the language used. And it does concern me. I don't know how many people have actually seen the speech. She delivered it very, very well. She's a great actress in her presentation. But for a young person, something has indoctrinated her, to take wrong facts, make false statements out of it, which almost becomes a Goebbels presentation. And that, I think, is bad for the other pupils in the school and bad to be seen on the websites also.
Mervyn, I'll answer the question. We have made representations. Vice President Marie van der Zyl wrote to the head teacher of Wanstead High School, setting out our views with great clarity, and we have made or endorsed a positive suggestion for groupings which send specialized, skilled Muslims and Jews into schools to talk to pupils, to get them to reach a more balanced view on the subject. Not one view, but a balanced view on the subject, and we have encouraged and we shall continue to encourage the head teacher of Wanstead High School to take up that suggestion. And generally, people who ask, I'm sorry we missed that question, but your first question we have already answered. Wes Streeting, let me make clear, is a friend. And we have had a conversation with him. We've had many conversations with him, and what you don't do with a friend is react in a way that would be unfortunate and make a friend into an enemy. That's all I'm going to say about it. To Linda, can I just say that it's one of the great privileges of this position that sometimes I get invited, the President gets invited to these events. It was a very beautiful and moving event, and I just think the Jewish community should take pride in the fact that faith leaders, and in my case, lay leader, is there to represent the Jewish community, sitting in really one of the nicest seats in the house, treating me like a religious leader, but it was a very special event, and I was very pleased to be there on behalf of the Jewish community. Right, moving on, our next item on the agenda then are the divisional reports, and we normally get through these quite quickly, and then we'll have some time for some workshops to finish the meeting at 4:30, 4:45. I haven't asked my vice presidents which of them would like to go first. Marie, would you like to? If we start with Defence and Group Relations Division, Marie.
Thank you. Can I just add, Deputies, in relation to the report, on the 8th of June I attended a Universities UK roundtable meeting in Parliament to discuss various campus issues. Wes Streeting was in that meeting, and there couldn't be somebody who wasn't more supportive for the Jewish community and against anti-Semitism. So I just want to echo Johnny. He really has been promoting everything he can in the community to help. So at that meeting there were representatives from higher education, there were parliamentarians including Maria Miller, David Lammy, Wes Streeting, and there were representatives from across the Jewish community, ourselves, UJS, chaplaincy, and it was a really positive meeting. We can't reveal what's actually being discussed because that's confidential, but Baroness Deitch, Lord Wharf, Baroness Royale was also there, and we were able to have some frank views as to our feelings as to various things that had happened and various inquiries in a very transparent way, so that you're probably going to see some changes to the law at some point in the way that issues are dealt with on campus that will be positive, and that the Jewish community will have played a major part in recommending that. So I can't say any more than that at present about that. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I did have a question on what was the meeting about with Rupa Huck. Edward Cohen asked me about this. I just wanted to say that wasn't about, I'm told, it wasn't about local issues, it was about national issues with the Labour Party. And I also wanted to say, whilst I can't reveal any details, there is an issue with somebody who's not in the Labour Party, and that is being followed up equally. So I don't want deputies to think it's targeted for any one political party.
If there are no questions to Marie, then I will invite Stuart to present his activity report of the F&O division.
I'll be quick. I hope the report is, to all intents and purposes, self-explanatory. We are deceptively in profit for the year, but we're projected to continue to run a deficit, but our projections have us succeeding in reducing the deficit for the year by about 2/3 relative to last year. We're on the right track. Income is going to be the real litmus test of whether we're able to move near towards balance during the course of this triennium. And I can't encourage you enough. There have been some really good ideas put forward verbally over the last few months. Please send them in by email or by letter. That's the way for us to absorb them and begin to act on them. And there are some good initiatives being developed around that. Most of all, I want to thank those of you, not just within the F&O division, but also outside of it, who've been helping with the different working groups, the different work streams that are described in the report, people outside of the division, and also those of you who've been taking the initiative to get our message out to their communities and others and bring in new representatives from different communities. And yeah, thanks for the help there. If there are any questions, great. If not, well, David Fart, well, whoever's got a question, come and queue up and we'll deal with them.
Edward Cohen, Ealing United Synagogue. May I first of all congratulate the Finance Committee on its handling of the finances. At the moment they seem to be more or less okay. I realised to my amazement that on looking through previous records, I've just celebrated my 21st anniversary. Not my 21st wedding anniversary, or even, as some of you will be thinking, my 21st birthday. But in fact, I've been a deputy for 21 years. And some of you probably have never heard me speak before, so it's something that I consider and I hold very dear. The Board of Deputies, in my opinion, and I'm sure in most of yours, is the foremost organisation that speaks for all the Jewish people. Indeed, it can probably be said that it's the only Jewish organisation that speaks for all the Jewish people. And I am very concerned and angry, well, that's the wrong word, concerned would be better, that we do not have proper premises of our own. We sold our premises at Bloomsbury Square a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. there was a substantial sum of money left over afterwards, and we have not yet purchased or done anything. All right, we have tried perhaps, but we have not yet managed to obtain our own premises. Mr. President, fellow deputies, we really ought to have our own premises, which are ours, and not ever be in danger of being removed. So I ask the executive and you to support me in asking the executive to consider this situation regularly, once again, and regularly, to make sure that we do try and obtain permanent premises for this, the most august Jewish organisation in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.
I'll respond to that question as it raises wider issues, and I've no doubt we'll come back to it. The executive and the honour officers have been wrestling with this for a long time. Here's the reality, Edward. It costs us less to occupy the very proper premises we have in Kentish Town than when we had our own freehold premises, which were in a lovely old historic building, but were beginning to cost arms and legs to maintain, and it wasn't a building that was fit for purpose, because everyone was stuck in different rooms. It was a townhouse. Before I can tell you, because it pretty much coincided with my election, and what I saw before as a vice president, the working relationships, the effectiveness, and the general atmosphere in the office was immeasurably improved by the offices that we have now. Could we buy our own premises? 2 points here. First point is we could, but you know, the board is a relatively small organisation with rarely more than 10 to 12 people in the office at one time. We are at the moment being able to operate economies of scale by being with a larger organisation. And not only that, but it's an organisation, the UGIA, which is highly energetic and successful, and there is a tremendous synergy between our staff teams, and both benefit from the other. I would therefore not support being in a little office somewhere which just the board occupied. So we would need to look at going in with another group into a bigger office. And that is indeed what we are looking at. And another possibility is that we will buy a building as an investment and we will rent it to other people, and we may or may not be occupant there ourselves. Now, at the moment, the F&O have an investment committee which has considered that very issue and will be reporting in due course. At the moment, we're probably fortunately, our money was not in shares, which would have suffered a big hit recently. But the issue about what we do with the proceeds of sale of Bloomsbury Square, the overwhelming bulk of whom we retain, is now under consideration from professional experts advising the board with professional responsibilities. And that's really all I can say. So I would say that while the heart tells me, yes, we need our own building, we need another Bloomsbury Square, I must be honest with you, deputies, and say the head tells me, actually right at the moment, we have a better option which we're working on. Sorry, next questions.
Anthony Spencer, Shenley United Synagogue. Thank you, Mr. President. Really a question for Stuart. In your report, do you mean that the money that has been raised from the sale of the old property, has that not been invested at all anywhere, like in a bank,
no,
a post office,
not at all.
In a local authority where
I'm sorry, with all due respect, ask me a sensible question. Of course it's somewhere. It's on Treasury deposit.
Right, okay. So it is earning some interest. Because I wasn't quite sure with...
It's not under the mattress.
Yeah. No, fine. Because I wasn't quite sure with what you put on the report. Okay, thank you. That was it.
Nick Beck, Brighton and Hove Reform. Mr. President, Stuart, in your report you mention increasing the contribution for membership of the Board of Deputies to the synagogues and that type of thing. My problem is, and this was echoed by President Lauder earlier, we need to do much more PR so that the people in the synagogues really understand what we're about. what is being done by Dr. Gowolb, for instance, and her committee, which I'm proud to be a member of. But I mean, it is doing so much in the CED. And when I went this week to the Sussex Jewish Representative Council and started to tell them, there was a total ignorance from them. They had no idea what was happening. And we need to be doing both in publicity and, I'm sorry, our website is a nice website, but it's actually not punchy in the way that it might be. And I think we've got to do something more. Then people will be pleased to contribute more. But the other thing is, I think we need to have some projects, maybe local, maybe national, which will be fundraising. And again, this was mentioned by Spencer Nathan when he came back from the meeting in Bratislava about raising funds. And I think that is another area. But I do think this PR side is important. Sorry.
Yeah, this is all good. One of the things we're looking at, and one of the reasons we're encouraging deputies to come forward with ideas, is so that we can have a menu of different things that money can be spent on. So absolutely agree with you there. In terms of getting our message across to the community, it's as much a job for the deputies as for the organisation. I think the organisation itself has turned something of a corner over the last year and a half. I think we'll all agree. Goodness sake, a couple of months ago being mentioned 3 times in the Bagahot column in The Economist is no small achievement, let alone getting into the mainstream media with some regularity. I think great strides have been made by Johnny, some of the other HOs, and our public affairs people, and Gillian. But yeah, I agree. David.
No, we're going to have to move along because obviously we're going to squeeze out the workshops.
David Farber, you've just said something, Jonathan, that I was going to say myself. I commend the Treasurer's report. I thank him for giving us hard information. It looks as if last year, 2015, we made a shocking great deficit, and this year we're going to make another deficit, albeit smaller. I think that the board has a massive problem of finances on its hand, and it is, in a way, the biggest problem that the board has to face. It isn't of Stuart's making at all. Stuart is tackling this very well. But you're perfectly right, it's just gone 4:05. So point 1, could we have a reassurance that at the next meeting, when I believe the 2015 accounts are to be presented, that we have full and ample time to discuss the finances? Second, I think in addition to the accounts for last year, we would need to have a kind of action plan for what to do about this. It's very difficult, and I don't envy Stuart his task, but what do we do? We've obviously got to go into major fundraising mode. The President's dinner is very good, does a great deal, and thank you to all those who do it. But it's quite clear we need many things on top. What are those going to be? And when we get the accounts, Stuart, could we please have a kind of trend analysis? How has this been going over the last few years? Is this financial situation a blip, or is it built in and endemic? So could we please have A, a substantial look at this next time, and B, a kind of what do we all do in depth, where are we going with it? Plan, please.
When we present the accounts, we're going to have ample opportunity, possibly through a workshop, to talk about what's been going on. I have been quite consistent in this. I'm not really going to spend a great deal of time looking back at what was going on 3, 4, 5 years ago. I want to look forward. We have, over the last year, brought things on the expenditure side of the equation under control. We have introduced new systems. In keeping what you and others have said, there is an emphasis on raising more money going forward. Yeah, there is something of a plan which we'll be happy to rehearse in the workshop perhaps next time.
Mervyn Smith-Sutton. I'm not going to be like the wee girl in the referendum debate who was a literary student and made suggestions to
David Cameron, but you're profligate in words and stingy in figures in your report. I'm not sure how many people here can make head nor tail of what is actually happening. There's a suggestion that in the 5 months, the surplus of income over expenditure is over £160,000. We then go on to a deficit. There is no description, which surely you could have effected, to show income and expenditure over this period, which makes up this surplus that's arising. A structural deficit, well, sadly, I've never heard of that term, and I'm not sure many people here will have heard of that term. You've got a deficit shown for last year, and that's reflected in figures that were circulated a while back, of over £300,000. You don't show what the non-recurring items, they're obviously major items, otherwise you wouldn't have referred to them, but why not actually provide a quantum to it to make some sense as far as members and the deputies are concerned in looking at your report and your figureless report. As far as the budget is concerned, you're now saying that you have succeeded in reducing the deficit by a good 2/3, which is obviously very, very good. However, what does it mean to anybody sitting here? Because they have a budget, they don't know how or why you've been successful in a 5-month period in being able to reduce a budget by 2/3, and you're then effecting that the deficit should be 65% lower than in 2015, yet the figures for 2015 enclose these
Mervyn, you're on amber. I have to ask you to
enclose these unquantifiable non-recurring items. So it is, forgive me, but a very woolly report and not deserving of the financial representative of the board.
I'm simply not going to rise to this, Mervyn. You're trying to bait me virtually every time you stand up and speak. The reality is that we're going to be presenting the report and accounts next time. We've simply trailed what the headline figures are. We have only just put through revised budget forecasts for the year, and we will have ample opportunity at the next board meeting to go through all of this. And I'll repeat my offer to you: come along to an F&O meeting or two and see how we are going through these things. I think that you will find that the division is pretty unanimous in supporting the direction of travel. And we are not going out of our way to conceal anything, quite the opposite. But thank you for the questions.
Louise, no heckling from the floor, please.
Louise Friedman, Association of Jewish Women's Organisations. I don't wish to take away from the President's Dinner, which is a fabulous event and which raises a huge amount of money, but please could you consider having some kind of fundraising activities which everyone could afford to join in, because the President's Dinner is inclined to be top end. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but we need something to balance it. Thank you.
Nothing wrong with the suggestion. It has been pointed out that the President's Dinner was free to attend. It was not made inaccessible to people. But fair enough, if we can broaden our fundraising activities, we will do so.
Thank you, Deputies. I'd like to ask Richard to present the International Division report.
Thank you, Jonathan. Just 2 quick remarks from me, and then we'd welcome your thoughts and comments on the report. May I reiterate our congratulations to Bernard Silver on being elected to our division, yet another talented deputy to join our band of merry men and women. We look forward to working with you very much. And secondly, we've touched obviously on the tragic murder of Joe Cox. We've touched on the horrific massacre in Orlando. I don't think we touched on the tragic events in Tel Aviv a few weeks ago. So let me just take the opportunity to do that. Many of you will know the Sarona complex in Tel Aviv. I was there myself just in February. And in fact, our Public Affairs Director, Phil Rosenberg, who many of you know, was actually in Sarona just hours before the attacks took place a few weeks ago, and 4 innocent people lost their lives. Certainly a situation that we send our condolences to all the families and keep an eye on the situation. Are there any comments, questions on the report, please?
Robert Stone, PhD. Congratulations, Sheila. Finchley Reformed Synagogue. In view of what's been said about Israel and Jews and who has a right to do what, this might sound pedantic or smart-ass or stroppy, but it's meant to be neither. It's meant to be helpful. At the bottom of the report, it says that David Walsh, of the first page, David Walsh met the desk officers for Israel and the Palestinian territories at the FCO to brief them on the current round of violence, changes in the Israeli governing coalition, and other issues. I'm assuming that's a wording error. You were briefing them on the attitudes of the British Jewish community to these things. Having worked in the Foreign Office for 7 years, if somebody came along to tell me what was happening in the Middle East, I know what I would think. If the Board of Deputies came to ask me what Jews think about what's happening in the Middle East, then I would listen to them with respect.
Thank you.
Mervyn, I wouldn't normally call on you. We really do try not have people repeatedly coming up to the microphone. If you could possess yourself in patience, I'd actually ask you not to pose any further questions and ask Richard afterwards.
Fine.
Thank you very much for agreeing to set an example.
Are there any other questions? In that case, Robert, thank you. Far be it from me to ever accuse you of being pedantic or flippant, but your comment is noted and we'll make an adjustment in the minutes.
Right, Community Education Division, Sheila.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sheila. Yeah, Dr. Mummy, the kids call me. Okay, so yeah, I present my report to you. 3 comments I would like to make. First of all, I would like to mention that all the volunteers who work on the tours, I would like to thank them. A lot of them aren't deputies, but without them, these tours couldn't take place. That's the first thing I'd like to say. The second thing is that you may have noticed that the exhibition has not actually gone to Wrexham as was planned in June. We've actually moved it from the 14th to the 25th of November. This was for the organisational point of getting schools to take up the offer of coming to visit. It wasn't working with their planning before the end of the school year. Wrexham College have now confirmed 14th to 25th. Schools will be coming on board. We please need volunteers. We've agreed with Liverpool to try and get some people coming from there. But if anybody is interested, please can they contact Jewish Living to be able to go to Wrexham in North Wales to help with the exhibition in November. And thirdly, the first item on the education policy report. Sorry? I thought somebody said they couldn't hear. The education policy report mentions the work done by Clive Lawton. This is a resource that is going to be on behalf of the board that will be available to all schools teaching GCSE Judaism. The Catholic Diocese has instructed that all their schools, that's a third of all secondary schools in the UK, will be teaching Judaism as the 25% of their RE GCSE syllabus. And our work, our resource is going to be available in hard copy and online. And Jackie Emery should be commended for her work, working with Clive Lawton to edit this, which hopefully this resource will be launched in July. So I'd just like to mention that. I'm happy to take any comments or questions on my report. Paul, thank you.
Paul Edlin, Glasgow Jewish Representative Council. I just wanted to inform deputies that the Regional Assembly today, which is part of the Community Issues Division, made a momentous decision today, which was to implement a new mentoring project for smaller communities throughout the country. I mean the country of Great Britain, not just England. And this is a momentous decision because this is the first time in the existence of the Regional Council, which is over 25 years, that we have actually executed anything, and this is of this nature. And this is quite momentous. We have a professional person, expert person in Spencer Nason who will be leading the project. And I just wanted to let deputies know about this momentous decision. We also agreed to hold the regional plenary in Exeter, hopefully in May. And we also agreed at this meeting that we would reinstigate the meetings between the chairs of regional councils and the board, initially on an annual basis, but it was raised that it should be 6 monthly, and we will certainly be striving to do that. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yes, we're looking at the dates, sorry, yeah. Thank you, Paul. Yes, I should have mentioned that. The Regional Assembly falls under the remit of the Community and Education Division. We did have a very active, positive meeting earlier on today. The regional weekend will be in Exeter. We're looking at May. We thought that would work better than March if we're going to a sort of seaside place. We will need to confirm the dates. It's usually the third Sunday in the month, but we need to confirm that. And we are thankful again, Spencer, for offering your expert services in communities where they need religious performances, help. Thank you. And thank you, Paul, for taking that meeting. It was really good. And the last thing is that I would like to reinstate the Regional Representative Council Chair meetings. We would like to do that. We agreed that for this to work throughout the whole of the UK, all the support, all the mentoring, all the fundraising we want to do regionally needs to have everybody on board, and the support of the representative councils is fundamental for this. So thank everybody who attended the meeting earlier today. And thank everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Deputies. I'm just going to mention for the next board meeting on the, is it the 19th? 17th, sorry, 17th of July. I look forward to welcoming you here at 2:15. That meeting, we're not going to have a speaker, so there'll be plenty of time to look at board business, and we should be under less time pressure on that occasion. We've now got workshops which will conclude by 10 to 5, and we have 4. Sheila is going to speak on and discuss with you school outreach work, what is going on in your region. Marie will give an update on campuses. Richard on the progress of his project, reviewing the whole board structures, changing the board, and I will, as usual, have a surgery for those who want to raise any particular matters with me. I'm happy to stay up here. Perhaps if Sheila and Marie between them take the far corners, and Richard will perhaps somewhere around the front. I thank all of you deputies for coming, and I hope you enjoy the workshops. Look forward to seeing you.